It's early morning in Providence, the Chi. Audio by paper to audio. It's early morning in Providence, the kind of cool October day where the sun rises slowly and the air feels heavier than usual. People file into the municipal court building, unaware that they're about to witness something unlike anything this courtroom, or any courtroom, has ever seen. Judge Frank Caprio sits at the bench, adjusting his glasses, flipping lightly through the last few files of the day. At 84 years old, he still carries the same gentle composure, the same quiet wisdom, the same warmth that made thousands of strangers travel across states just to watch him in person. What no one knows, and what even he doesn't realize, is that this will be his final week on the bench. Outside the courtroom doors, the bailiff clears his throat and announces the next case. A shoplifting charge, Your Honor, final case of the morning. Routine, unremarkable. Nothing about it suggests that the next 30 minutes will reshape everyone in this room. Then the doors opens. A frail man, 84 years old, makes his way in, moving carefully, leaning on a cane carved from a tree branch. His clothes are layered, mismatched, and worn thin from years of harsh weather. He looks like someone who's been surviving, not living. But it's not the man that captures every pair of eyes. It's what he pulls behind him. A rusted shopping cart covered with a blue tarp. The wheels squeak against the tile floor as he drags it in. The cart looks overstuffed, as if this metal rattletrap carries his entire world. Judge Caprio's gaze softens immediately. The clerk reads the name from the docket. Edward Patrick Sullivan. The old man steps forward. One hand grips the cane. The other stays firmly on the shopping cart, as if letting go might mean losing something sacred. Mr. Sullivan, you're charged with shoplifting, the clerk continues. A loaf of bread from Murphy's corner store. The judge folds his hands, observing him the way only Caprio does, with empathy first, judgment second. How do you plead, Mr. Sullivan? The old man swallows, jaw trembling before he speaks. Guilty, Your Honor, I was hungry. His voice sounds like someone who has spent a lifetime carrying things heavier than the law could ever weigh. There's a stillness in the courtroom. Even the people waiting for their own cases pause to listen. Judge Caprio leans forward. Mr. Sullivan, are you experiencing homelessness? Yes, sir, 8 years now, lost my apartment after a VA paperwork mistake. I've been living outside ever since. The judge nods a slow, thoughtful nod. Their ages are the same, their lives could not be more different. And your age, Mr. Sullivan? 84, Your Honor, same as you, I believe. That hits the room like a quiet bomb. 2 men born in the same year. 2 men who served their country in different ways. One sits behind the bench. One stands before it, hungry and alone. Judge Caprio lets out a breath that only someone his age would understand. Mr. Sullivan, he asks gently, did you serve in the military? The old man lifts his chin slightly, pride flickering through his worn features. Yes, Your Honor, Army Korea, Vietnam II tour. A murmur sweeps through the courtroom. Suddenly this isn't a shoplifting case, it's something deeper. Judge Caprio rises from his seat, his signature gesture when a moment becomes more than legal procedure. He walks down from the bench, shortening the distance between authority and humanity. Mr. Sullivan, he says softly, may I ask, what is inside that cart? The old veteran stiffens instantly, his hand tightens on the handle. For the first time he looks panicked. Your Honor, it's just personal things, nothing illegal, just things that matter. Judge Caprio steps closer, lowering his voice so only the old man can hear. Eddie, I'm not asking as a judge, I'm asking as someone who cares. Silence. 40 people in the courtroom watch this old veteran struggle with something invisible but heavy. His fingers tremble. His eyes dart around the room, suddenly unsure, suddenly vulnerable. My things, people might think I'm crazy if they see what's in here, he whispers. Judge Caprio places a hand over his heart. Son, in 30 years on this bench, I have never looked at someone with ridicule for caring too much. Whatever is in that cart matters to you. That means it matters to me. Slowly, painfully slowly, the old man nods. His trembling hands reach for the corner of the tarp. The room holds its breath. And as the tarp begins to lift, everything changes. Eddie lifts the blue tarp with the caution of someone handling something sacred. People in the courtroom lean forward without realizing it. The room grows so quiet that you can hear the fabric slide across metal. Then the cart's contents come into view. And every sound in the courthouse disappears. Stacked inside, carefully wrapped, organized, protected, are hundreds of photographs, old letters, military journals, dog tags, medals, and yellowed documents tied neatly with string. These aren't random belongings. They aren't junk. It looks like a mobile museum. Judge Caprio blinks, stunned. Mr. Sullivan, are these military service items? Eddie nods, though his eyes avoid the judge's. Yes, Your Honor, these are my boys. He reaches inside the cart with trembling fingers and pulls out a black and white photograph. An impossibly young soldier, barely 19, smiling in a uniform too big for him. This is Private Tommy Chen, Eddie murmurs. He died at Chasen Reservoir. He used to talk about teaching his little sister to drive when he made it home. A woman in the audience quietly presses a tissue to her face. Eddie digs deeper, pulling out another photograph, this one creased but lovingly preserved. This is Sergeant Mike Rodriguez from El Paso. He wrote his sweetheart a letter every day we were deployed. He died carrying 3 wounded men to safety. Judge Caprio steps closer, the heaviness settling in his chest. And this, Eddie's voice cracks as he lifts a faded photograph of a young lieutenant, is James Morrison, Maine boy, saved my life by throwing himself on a grenade. He told me, tell my mom I died thinking about her apple pie. The bailiff turns away for a moment, blinking hard. These aren't objects. These are promises. Vows kept by a man the world forgot. Eddie, the judge whispers, how long have you been carrying these? The old veteran swallows. 70 years, sir. The courtroom gasps. 70 years. Through rains. Through snow. Through hunger, homelessness, and loss. Every photograph protected. Every letter wrapped. Every dog tag polished. Judge Caprio's eyes drift over the cart, taking in the magnitude. This isn't just a collection, he murmurs. This is a memorial. Eddie nods again, this time with a small flicker of pride. These are the boys whose families never claimed their things. I promised I'd keep them safe, keep their stories alive. He pulls out a thick, weather-beaten notebook wrapped in layers of plastic. The edges are frayed from decades of handling. This, he says, voice trembling, is their book. I wrote every detail I could remember, every story, every moment. I add to it whenever I learn something new. Judge Caprio takes the notebook carefully, as though it holds something fragile, because it does. He opens it. The pages are written in small, tight handwriting, dates, names, places, memories, detailed accounts of battles, notes about personalities, dreams the boys had shared in bunkers, last words whispered on foreign soil. Caprio flips page after page, his expression shifting from admiration to grief to something close to reverence. Eddie, he says softly, this is extraordinary. This is one of the most remarkable acts of remembrance I've ever seen. But as he continues reading, he suddenly stops. His eyes widen. Mr. Sullivan, it says here you've been tracking down the families of fallen soldiers and returning personal items. Is this true? Eddie nods. Yes, Your Honor, over 200 families so far. Sometimes it takes years, but I find them. I deliver a last letter, a medal, a photo they never saw. I tell them their boy wasn't alone. The room remains silent, crushed by emotion. Judge Caprio closes the notebook with trembling hands. Eddie, he says, voice softening into something nearly fatherly, all while you were homeless. You did all this while living on the streets. Eddie nods again, but this time there's no pride, only exhaustion. Yes, sir, lost my apartment when the VA messed up my disability paperwork. Never got it sorted, but I kept the cart with me. These boys needed someone to watch over them. Someone sniffles loudly in the second row. Judge Caprio wipes a tear with the back of his hand. In that moment, he isn't looking at a defendant. He's looking at a guardian of ghosts. A man who carried the memory of 437 soldiers through 70 unforgiving years. Finally, the judge speaks, voice steady but heavy. Eddie, I need you to know something. The old veteran lifts his eyes. You haven't been forgotten, not in this courtroom, not anymore. And with that, Judge Caprio does something nobody expects. Something that will change the course of this case. And the judge's legacy. Forever. The courtroom is frozen. Eddie stands there, one hand on his cart, the other holding that worn notebook of memories. Judge Caprio is still in front of the bench, not as a distant authority figure, but as an 84-year-old man looking at another 84-year-old man whose life took a brutally different path. Then quietly, the judge does something that no one in that room will ever forget. He takes off his glasses. He exhales, and he steps away from the bench. Not just a few inches. He walks all the way down and stands directly beside Eddie's cart. No robe, no desk, no distance. Just two old men, side by side, staring at a lifetime of sacrifice packed into a rusty metal frame. "Ladies and gentlemen," Judge Caprio says, turning to the courtroom, his voice thick with emotion. "What you see in front of you is not evidence in a criminal case. It is evidence of a lifetime of service." He gestures toward the photos, the medals, the journal. "This man has done more to honor our fallen than most institutions with million-dollar budgets." The room is dead silent. Even the court reporter has stopped typing. Judge Caprio turns back to Eddie. "Mr. Sullivan, Eddie, you said you've been doing this for 70 years. "Yes, Your Honor," Eddie nods. "Since I came home, I figured if I made it back and they didn't, the least I could do was carry them with me." The judge swallows hard. "How many nights have you slept on the street with this cart?" Eddie shrugs, almost embarrassed by the question. "Too many to count, sir. Doorways, bus stops, shelters when there's room. As long as I've got the cart, I'm okay. I can't leave them behind." You can feel the guilt hanging in the air. For years, people probably walked past this man, maybe laughed at him, maybe judged him, maybe wished he'd just move his cart out of the way. Not knowing he was carrying 437 heroes. Judge Caprio straightens up, his voice suddenly firm. "Let the record reflect," he says, glancing at the clerk, "that this defendant is not just a homeless man accused of stealing a loaf of bread. He is a decorated veteran, a survivor of 2 wars, and the self-appointed guardian of hundreds of fallen soldiers." The clerk's eyes are glassy as she writes. The judge slowly returns to the bench, but something has changed. You can feel it even through the screen. He doesn't sit down right away. He looks out at the courtroom, then straight into the camera, as if talking to every person who will ever watch this moment online. "Eddie," he says, finally taking his seat, "I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say." The old veteran grips his cane a little tighter. "On the matter of the shoplifting charge, stealing a loaf of bread valued at $2.49. He pauses. "This court finds you not guilty." The room explodes in a wave of emotion. Some people clap before they remember they're in a courtroom, others just cover their faces and cry. Eddie blinks in confusion. "But, Your Honor, I told you I did it. I took the bread." Judge Caprio smiles sadly. "Yes, Eddie, you took a loaf of bread because you were hungry. Our system may call that a crime. My conscience does not." He leans forward. "If there is any guilt to be assigned today, it is not yours. It belongs to all of us who allowed a man who fought for his country to end up hungry in the first place." That line hits like a punch to the chest. Then the judge does something even more unexpected. "Furthermore," he continues, "this court is not done with you, Mr. Sullivan. Normally, when someone is found not guilty, I say, you're free to go. But in your case, I'm going to say something different." He turns to the bailiff. "Officer, please make sure Mr. Sullivan and his cart stay here after court adjourns. We have arrangements to make." Eddie looks completely lost. "Arrangements, sir?" Judge Caprio smiles. "Yes, starting with this, you are not sleeping on the streets again." The murmurs start again. People are shaking their heads in disbelief. "I am personally contacting the Veterans Affairs Office, the Mayor's Office, and every agency necessary to see that you have proper housing, food, and support. Not as charity, but as a debt we owe you." He taps the notebook on the desk. "And this," he says, holding up Eddie's book, "this belongs in a place of honor, a museum, a memorial, somewhere the world can see what you've done for these men. But it will be your decision, Eddie. You've guarded their stories for 70 years. No one is taking that from you." Eddie's lower lip trembles. "Your Honor, why are you doing this for me?" The judge's answer is simple. "Because you never stopped doing it for them." He lets that hang in the air. Then he turns slightly, addressing the viewers who will see this clip on their phones, on their TVs, maybe years from now. "And if you're watching this," he says quietly, "I want you to remember something. Men like Eddie shouldn't have to carry the weight of remembrance alone. We all share that responsibility." He bangs the gavel gently. "Case dismissed, but Eddie, your mission is not." The courtroom erupts in applause, some people standing, some wiping tears, some filming on their phones. You just know this is the moment that's going to explode across the internet. The judge stands again, steps off the bench, and walks straight back to Eddie's cart. He reaches out and with both hands rests them gently on the handle of the shopping cart. 2 sets of hands. 1 rusty cart. 437 souls. Today, Judge Caprio says softly, they're not just your boys anymore, they're ours. What happens next will take this moment from powerful courtroom clip to a global movement that changes lives far beyond that little room in Providence. The moment the gavel falls, the courtroom doesn't empty the way it normally does. No one rushes to the exit. No one fumbles with their phones or paperwork. Instead, people linger, gathering around Eddie as if drawn by something sacred. For the first time in decades, Eddie Sullivan isn't invisible. The bailiff approaches him gently. "Sir, the judge asked me to stay with you," he says, not as an officer, but as a man suddenly aware of the hero standing before him. Judge Caprio steps down once more, walking toward the rusted shopping cart like he's approaching a monument. There is reverence in every step. "Eddie," he says, "help is already on the way." The judge hands the clerk a slip of paper and instructs her quietly. She nods and begins making calls. Within 30 minutes, something extraordinary happens. One by one, officials begin to walk into the courtroom. Representatives from the Veterans Affairs Office. A liaison from the mayor's office. 2 Marines from the local garrison. A historian from Rhode Island's Military Heritage Society. All summoned by Judge Caprio himself. They gather around Eddie's cart and look at its contents with awe. The Marine corporal steps forward, salutes and says, "Sir, I can't begin to tell you what this means. You've honored men that many Americans never had the chance to thank." Eddie's voice shakes as he replies, "I just didn't want them to be forgotten." One official wipes their eyes. A woman from the VA bends down and carefully inspects the notebook. "We're going to help you, Mr. Sullivan," she says softly. "Whatever you need, housing, medical care, food, you'll have it." Eddie's knees wobble, he grips his cane for balance. For 70 years, he has carried the weight of memory alone. Today, that burden finally begins to lift. The courtroom cameras catch everything. The footage goes online within hours. And overnight, Eddie Sullivan becomes a global symbol of devotion and sacrifice. 10 hours later, 4 million views. 24 hours, 18 million. 48 hours, international coverage. 72 hours, the world knows his name. News headlines pop up everywhere. Homeless veterans spent 70 years honoring fallen soldiers. Judge Caprio responds with love. The most emotional courtroom moment ever recorded. The shopping cart memorial that brought a judge to tears. Families of fallen soldiers begin reaching out. Mothers who lost sons in Korea, daughters who never met their fathers from Vietnam. People want to know. Did my boy serve with you, Eddie? Do you have something of his? Can we meet you? The calls don't stop. A week later, Eddie stands in front of a crowd of over 600 people at a Veterans Memorial event. He isn't wearing torn clothing anymore. The VA has provided him new clothes, shelter, food, medical assistance. But he's carrying the same notebook. The same memories. The same love. He is invited on stage and the crowd erupts into applause. The governor of Rhode Island shakes his hand. "Mr. Sullivan, your service did not end on the battlefield. It continued every day for 70 years, and today we honor you." 2 weeks later, Eddie receives a letter. The Smithsonian Institution, the most respected museum system in the United States, wants to create a permanent exhibit based on his collection. Not temporary, not traveling, permanent. They want Eddie's notebook, the photos, the letters, the dog tags, a replica of the shopping carts, and a video recording of Judge Caprio's ruling as the centerpiece. Eddie is overwhelmed. "I want the world to know these men," he whispers. And the Smithsonian responds, "That's exactly what we intend to do." Only 2 weeks after Eddie's case, Judge Frank Caprio passes away. The news sends shockwaves across the country. The man known for compassion, fairness, and dignity is gone. Thousands attend his funeral. Millions watch online. The world feels smaller without him. In the front row sits Eddie Sullivan, wearing a simple suit provided by the VA. Beside him is his cart, cleaned, polished, and covered with an American flag. When it is Eddie's turn to speak, he walks slowly to the podium and places a single photograph on it. Judge Frank Caprio smiling warmly. Judge Caprio saved my life, Eddie says, voice trembling. He honored my boys, and now he's part of their story too. He gently places the judge's photograph inside the cart, beside the soldiers he carried for so many years. A ripple of emotion sweeps through the church. Judge Caprio's son approaches Eddie afterward, tears in his eyes. My father, he would have loved that, he says. Eddie just nods, he earned a place with them. Months pass. The Smithsonian exhibit opens, titled, The Card of Memory, One Man's Promise to His Fallen Brothers. Visitors from around the world come to see it. Schoolchildren read Eddie's handwritten notes. Veterans stand at attention before the display. Gold Star families leave flowers and letters. And at the very center of the exhibit, displayed behind glass, is a photograph of Judge Frank Caprio kneeling beside Eddie's cart, the moment compassion changed the world. Rest in peace, Judge Frank Caprio. Your compassion changed the world.